My beloved child, listen closely, because what I am about to reveal is not a coincidence, not imagination, and not an ordinary message drifting into your life by chance. There has been a silent movement around your family, a quiet alignment of events that began long before today, unseen yet precise, like pieces of a puzzle being placed one by one. Someone noticed something valuable connected to your family name, something overlooked, delayed, and nearly forgotten, and that delay is exactly why this moment feels so intense now. There is a window that does not stay open forever, a moment that demands attention before it quietly disappears, and the weight of that moment is already pressing against your life. You may feel a strange urgency, a pull that tells you not to ignore this, because what is connected to your family is not small, not symbolic, and not emotional alone. It carries real impact, real change, and real consequences if left untouched. There is a reason this message finds you now and not earlier, because timing decides everything when destiny and opportunity stand in the same room. Your family has been named in a matter that involves value accumulated over time, something that grew quietly while no one was watching, protected by rules, deadlines, and conditions that most people never notice until it is almost too late. Someone assumed your family would miss it, assumed distraction would win, assumed silence would continue, but that assumption is exactly where the story changes. This is not about luck falling from the sky. It is about recognition, eligibility, and a door that responds only once. The closer the deadline moves, the stronger the signal becomes, and that is why every second feels heavier now, as if the universe itself is reminding you that hesitation has a cost. What makes this moment powerful is not just the amount involved, but what it represents for your family's future. This is tied to relief, stability, and a shift that alters conversations at the dinner table, decisions about tomorrow, and worries that have lingered for far too long. There is a reason elders in your family once spoke about patience paying off, even when results were invisible, and this is where that patience shows its face. The value connected to your family was not meant for everyone, it was reserved, verified, and waiting for the right claim to be made. If opened in time, it brings a wave of change that feels almost unreal at first, like waking up into a life that suddenly breathes easier. But here is the part most people fail to understand, and this is where many stories quietly end without anyone realizing what they lost. Opportunities like this do not announce themselves loudly, they whisper, and they test awareness. There is a limit, a condition that does not bend for emotion or delay, and once it passes, explanations no longer matter. Someone is counting on distraction, on doubt, on the thought that this might not be important enough to act on immediately. That is why the pressure feels personal, because it is personal. This is directly connected to your family name, your responsibility, and your willingness to recognize the moment before it slips away like it never existed. So hold this awareness firmly, because this is not fear speaking, it is clarity. Your family stands at the edge of something meaningful, something that does not repeat itself in the same form twice. The choice to open, to act, to acknowledge what has surfaced now decides whether this story becomes a turning point or a missed chapter you only understand much later. Time is still present, but it is no longer generous, and that is exactly why this message arrived when it did. What happens next depends on whether you recognize that this is not just information. It is an invitation that expects an answer before it is too late. Listen carefully now, because what unfolds next is the part most people never hear until it is already out of reach. What is connected to your family is not random, and it was never meant to be discovered casually. It was protected by silence, time, and a belief that no one would look closely enough to notice. Somewhere in records that rarely get attention, your family's name surfaced again, highlighted not by chance but by completion of certain conditions that quietly matured over the years. This is why the moment feels charged, as if something unseen is urging you to stay alert, because once awareness arrives, responsibility follows. The silence that protected this opportunity is thinning, and with every passing moment, the space to act narrows in a way that cannot be reversed. There is a reason urgency wraps itself around this situation, and it is because value that remains unclaimed does not wait forever for recognition. Your family's connection to this matter carries verification, not assumption, and that verification activates only when acknowledged in time. Think of it as a sealed chapter that remained untouched not because it lacked worth, but because it required the right person to notice it at the right moment. Others may have passed similar doors without realizing what stood behind them, but this one did not close yet, and that is the difference. The weight you feel now is the awareness that delay is not neutral. Delay is a decision that silently shapes the outcome. What makes this moment emotionally heavy is how deeply it ties into your family's past sacrifices and unspoken struggles. Long nights of worry, quiet compromises, and hopes placed on someday all echo inside this situation. This is not just about receiving something. It is about acknowledgement that those silent efforts mattered, that something was accumulating even when progress felt slow. When families miss moments like this, it is not because they were undeserving, but because they underestimated the importance of timing. This is why your attention now matters more than comfort, because comfort encourages waiting, and waiting is exactly what this moment does not allow. You may sense a subtle resistance, a voice questioning whether this is real or whether action can wait until later. That voice does not come from logic, it comes from fear of responsibility and the discomfort of change. Significant shifts often arrive disguised as simple choices, and people dismiss them because they do not look dramatic at first glance. But behind this moment stands a measurable impact that changes how your family plans, breathes, and moves forward. Ignoring it does not keep life the same, it quietly allows something meaningful to dissolve without noise or warning. So stay present with this knowledge, because clarity has found you for a reason. Your family stands at a crossroads where awareness meets action, and what happens next depends entirely on how seriously this moment is taken. This is not about rushing blindly, it is about recognizing that time-sensitive opportunities respect decisiveness, not hesitation. The door is still visible, still reachable, but it does not remain open for those who keep questioning whether it is real. This chapter is waiting for acknowledgement, and the next step decides whether it becomes a turning point or a silence that only makes sense when it is already gone. Now understand this carefully, because the truth of this moment becomes sharper the closer you look at it. What is unfolding is not only about what your family may receive, but about why this opportunity reached your hands and not someone else's. There are layers behind this situation, layers built from records, timelines, and decisions made long ago that quietly pointed back to your family. Someone, somewhere, confirmed that the conditions were finally complete, that the waiting phase had ended, and that acknowledgement was the final requirement. This is why the pressure feels deliberate, because it is not chaos pushing you forward, it is structure calling for completion. There is a quiet test hidden inside this situation, one that reveals how seriously moments are treated when they arrive without loud celebration. Many people lose significant opportunities not because they lack worth, but because they delay action while seeking reassurance that never comes. This is why doubt feels tempting right now, because doubt creates the illusion of safety. Yet safety is not what moves destinies forward, awareness does. The closer this situation moves toward its limit, the more it asks one simple question: will this moment be respected, or will it be postponed until it disappears? Think about how often families look back and say, "If only we had known earlier." This is exactly the kind of moment that later becomes that sentence if ignored. The value attached to your family is not symbolic, it is defined, and it carries a clear impact that reshapes priorities and plans. It is meant to ease burdens that have been quietly carried and to open space where worry once lived. This is why the emotional weight feels so real, because it touches not just the present, but the future that follows from it. What makes this moment different from ordinary chances is that it does not return once dismissed. It does not wait for perfect confidence or complete certainty, because certainty often arrives only after action is taken. The system behind this opportunity recognizes readiness through response, not hesitation. Silence is interpreted as disinterest, and disinterest closes doors without explanation. This is why staying passive is not neutral, it is a choice with consequences that cannot be undone. So remain grounded in awareness, because the clarity you hold now is rare and intentional. Your family's story has reached a point where recognition meets responsibility, and this is where paths quietly separate. One leads toward relief, stability, and a sense that something long overdue finally arrived. The other leads toward a lingering question that never fully rests. This moment asks for presence, not fear, and the next step decides which version of the story becomes real. Pay attention now, because this is the stage where everything becomes irreversible. What has been approaching your family is no longer a distant possibility, it is a moment standing directly in front of you, waiting to be acknowledged before it fades into silence. The structure behind this opportunity has already done its part, verification, confirmation, and timing have aligned, and now only one element remains unfinished. That element is response. When moments like this reach this stage, they do not pause out of kindness. They move forward whether anyone is ready or not, and that movement decides who remains included and who is quietly left behind. There is a strange calm that often appears just before something life-shifting occurs, and that calm can be misleading. It convinces people that nothing urgent is happening, that waiting feels reasonable, that tomorrow will look the same as today. But this calm exists only because the opportunity is still open. Once it closes, the silence becomes permanent. Your family's name has already crossed a threshold where eligibility is recognized, and the remaining step is not complicated, only timely. This is why the simplicity of the moment can fool even the most careful minds into thinking it is safe to delay. Consider what changes when this opportunity is honored in time. Conversations in your family take on a different tone, worries loosen their grip, and choices expand in ways that once felt impossible. This is not about excess or fantasy. It is about stability arriving where uncertainty once lived. Many families never experienced this shift not because it was denied to them, but because the moment passed unnoticed. What stands before you now carries the power to rewrite a familiar pattern, to turn waiting into arrival and hope into something tangible. But understand this clearly: opportunities of this nature do not negotiate. They respect decisiveness, not emotional hesitation. Every system built around value follows the same principle: what remains unclaimed returns to silence without announcement. No warning follows, no second message arrives to explain what could have been. That is why this moment feels heavy, because it knows it is nearing its conclusion, and it knows that the choice made now echoes far beyond the present. So stay steady and aware, because this is the chapter where attention matters more than comfort. Your family stands at the edge of confirmation, where one action secures what has been waiting and one delay dissolves it completely. This is not pressure meant to frighten you, it is clarity meant to focus you. The door is still open, but it does not remain open forever, and what happens next defines whether this story becomes fulfillment or a silence that follows you long after the moment has passed. Stay with this moment, because what unfolds now is the quiet climax that most people never recognize while it is happening. When opportunities reach this point, they stop announcing themselves and begin observing. Nothing dramatic appears on the surface, no loud signal demands attention, yet beneath that stillness a final assessment is taking place. Your family's situation has moved beyond possibility into decision, and the environment around it is already adjusting to the outcome that will soon be locked in. This is why the atmosphere feels different now, as if time itself is holding its breath. There is a powerful truth hidden here that few understand until much later: life-changing moments rarely arrive with celebration, they arrive with responsibility. The value connected to your family has already been validated, already marked, and already set aside, but it will not wait indefinitely for acknowledgement. Systems that protect such value are designed to close cleanly and without emotion, leaving no trace behind for those who arrive too late. This is why awareness is everything right now, because awareness is the only thing that separates arrival from regret. Think carefully about what it means when something long overdue finally reaches its moment. It does not rush, it does not beg, and it does not explain itself twice. It simply presents itself once, clearly, and expects recognition. Your family's name stands at that point now, where the past's patience meets the future's opportunity. Accepting this moment reshapes what comes next, not just materially, but emotionally, creating a sense of security that changes how tomorrow is faced. What makes this stage intense is that it does not feel dramatic, yet its impact is permanent. Many people expect big changes to arrive loudly, but the most powerful shifts enter quietly and leave lasting effects. Ignoring this moment does not create chaos, it creates silence, and silence is where missed chances disappear forever. This is why the weight of this choice feels personal, because it carries the power to either complete a long cycle or leave it unfinished without explanation. So remain present, because this is where the story seals itself. Your family's future stands inches away from confirmation, balanced between action and delay. There will be no reminder after this point, no echo to follow, only the result of what is chosen now. This is the final stretch where awareness still matters, and what happens here defines whether this chapter closes with fulfillment or fades quietly into what might have been. Hold this awareness tightly now, because this is the moment where outcomes silently take their final shape. Nothing more needs to be added, nothing new needs to be discovered, everything that was required has already aligned. What remains is not complexity, but recognition. This stage feels deceptively quiet, almost ordinary, and that is exactly why so many people underestimate it. When life-changing shifts arrive, they often do so without drama, asking only for presence and seriousness. Your family stands in that quiet space now, where the future is not being imagined anymore, but selected. There is an invisible line that has nearly been crossed, a point where opportunity transforms into history. Once that line is passed, the system does not look back, does not explain, and does not reopen conversations. This is not harshness, it is design. Value that is protected by time respects only those who respect time in return. The reason this moment feels so heavy is because it understands its own importance, even if everything around it appears normal. This is where awareness proves its worth, because awareness is the only thing that notices when almost is about to become too late. Your family's name is still within reach of what was prepared for it, and that preparation was not accidental. It carries the weight of years, of unseen accumulation, of patience that did not demand immediate reward. This is why the shift that follows feels earned rather than gifted. When this moment is honored, it does not just bring relief, it brings a sense of completion, as if something long open finally finds its ending. That completion changes how your family steps forward, how choices are made, and how uncertainty loses its grip. But understand this truth without fear: moments like this do not return in another form. They do not reshape themselves to be easier or more convenient. Once they pass, they dissolve completely, leaving no evidence behind except a feeling that something important was once close. That feeling lingers quietly and surfaces years later in questions that never find answers. This is why the present feels so intense, because it carries the power to prevent that future silence. So remain steady and conscious, because this is the phase where attention becomes destiny. Your family's story is inches away from being sealed, one way or the other. Nothing dramatic will announce the conclusion, it will happen quietly, respectfully, and permanently. What is done now defines what can never be undone later, and that is why this moment matters more than it appears. This is the closing space, the point where the story no longer builds but settles into what it will forever be. Everything that needed to surface has already surfaced, and everything that needed to align has already aligned. What remains now is the quiet confirmation that follows awareness. This stage does not feel rushed, yet it does not wait either. It simply allows the outcome to solidify based on what has been recognized and respected. Your family stands here now, not in uncertainty, but at the edge of final definition. When moments like this complete themselves, they do so without noise. There is no announcement, no dramatic shift in the air, just a subtle sense that something has locked into place. This is how real change often arrives: calm, steady, and irreversible. If the opportunity is honored, the impact unfolds naturally over time, easing pressures, reshaping plans, and bringing a quiet sense of security that speaks louder than celebration ever could. If it is not, life continues as usual, but with a space that never quite fills, a sense that something important once passed close enough to touch. What matters most now is understanding that this was never about chance. It was about timing meeting awareness, about readiness showing itself not through excitement, but through seriousness. Your family was not chosen randomly, it was identified through conditions fulfilled and patience proven. This is why the weight of this moment feels personal, because it carries the imprint of your family's journey and the future that extends from it. There will be no second version of this moment, no echo to revisit later. Once the outcome settles, it becomes part of the past, even as its effects shape what comes next. This is the nature of decisive chapters. They end quietly, but they define everything that follows.